What's up, everybody? Anton Crayley here from Dropship Lifestyle. I'm here with Chad Sakonchik from BetterLegal.com. He's one of the co-founders. Their company basically helps form LLCs for people all over the world. They help form them in the United States. They've formed well over 1,000 of them in the past year in at least 30 different states, but capable of doing them in every state. So what we did is kind of compile a list from our members of common questions regarding business entities and LLCs. And full disclosure before we start, I am not a lawyer, neither is Chad, so take all this information kind of as public advice that you could also find online. If you have any pressing questions you want to speak to an attorney about, I think we would both recommend you go and do so. But yeah, this information is just going to be based on experience here. So Chad, thanks for hanging out and talking about this.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yep. So just going to take it from the top. Like, one of the biggest basic questions I would say that we get from people that are brand new to e-commerce is, what is an LLC, right? When they find out that they might need to form a business entity. So what is an LLC?
So an LLC stands for a limited liability company. It's very similar to a corporation, but it's actually much easier to set up and easier to maintain. So think of it like corporation light. It was created a couple decades ago specifically because corporations are so difficult to set up and so difficult to maintain that an LLC is a much simpler way. If you're just running a business, you want liability protection, you want professionalism, you want a separate business banking account, that is what an LLC is for. Okay, cool. And then for people that are wondering, like, I want to get into business, do I need that? Like, to start from day one, do they need an LLC to get into business? Yeah, it's really up to each individual person to make that decision for themselves. But if it depends on how much liability you're willing to take. It depends on, do you want a business checking account or do you want to run it through your personal checking account? Do you want to have an official name versus having a DBA that is tied to your personal assets? The real big thing is a liability protection. If you own a house and a car and something goes wrong with your business, do you want that house and car up on the chopping block if someone sues you? If the answer is, you don't have that much liability, then running it through your personal as a DBA is fine. If you do want that LLC protection, that liability protection, an LLC is a very good way to go. Yeah, and that's the key there. It's limited liability corporation, right? The liability is the key word. Like, when I started my first business when I was 21, I was out of college. I had nothing. I had no assets. So I started as a sole proprietor, but it was because I didn't have cars. I didn't have a family. I didn't have a house. I didn't have a business. So, like, it's really up to you and what you're willing to risk, basically. It's up to your risk tolerance. But also, just as another disclaimer, the liability protection is kind of to an extent. So if you do something negligent, that does not cover. So if you specifically know that a stair in your house or your office is bad and you invite people to go walk down it, you're not protected. So that
you can't do whatever you want because you have an LLC.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing. One thing I learned from actually one of my insurance agents years ago was, commingling your funds and like your personal activities with your business also. Even if you have an LLC or an S Corp and you start doing that, then basically anything's up for grabs if you ever get sued. So
that's
correct. Yeah, you still got to be careful with what it is you're doing. So cool. Another question that we get, because people hear me talk sometimes about the fact that I have an S corporation, kind of not just what's the difference, but which one should I pick? And like you mentioned earlier, LLCs are much simpler to form. And I think one thing people don't realize is they could have an LLC and you could have it for a week or you could have it for years. And then if you want to, you actually can get taxed as an S corporation. So, right, you can get both benefits starting with an LLC. That's correct. So an LLC, again, is much simpler to set up, much simpler to maintain. A corporation, it just has so many steps involved. And if you're not going to have shareholders, you're not going to have investors, you're not going to go to angels or VCs or potentially go public, there's not a great reason to be a corporation in that sense. An LLC, though, like we said, kind of has the benefits of a corporation, but you also can do what's called an S Corp tax election. So when you file your LLC, you can, and we provide this document with our package, you can basically tell the IRS, I choose to elect to be taxed as an S Corp for my LLC. So the IRS will view your LLC entity as an S Corp if you choose, and we provide that document. Yep. So you can really get the benefit of an S Corp
with an LLC.
Okay, perfect. So for people watching this now, if you're thinking like, okay, I want to do this or something I'm seriously considering, a good thing to talk about is actual costs, right? What does it cost to file one of these things? And also, like I'm sure Chad will talk about, it does vary by state because you're filing these most likely in the state where you live. But yeah, what are the type of costs involved?
Yeah, so an LLC is not actually formed with the United States government. It's with each individual sovereign state. So every state has their own process in how they file these, they store them, that whole rigmarole, how they tax it, what the fees are, et cetera, et cetera. So every state is very unique on the price and the turnaround time. So Wyoming, for example, is instant and I think is $100. New York is, I think, $200 and takes a day. Texas, 2 days. California, 5 days. It's really all over the board. And the filing fees is what the state charges to actually execute this for you and store this information. There are ongoing costs depending on what state you're in. So California, New York have kind of higher taxes to kind of keep your LLC in good standing. Some states have no taxes like Wyoming, Delaware, Nevada. Some have no franchise taxes like Texas. It really kind of varies. We have a great article about which state you should form your LLC in at betterlegal.com or info.betterlegal.com.
Yeah, I'll post a link below this video to that article.
We've got a whole bunch of information. But for having a service do it, like ourselves, we have a $299 packaged deal where it's $299 plus the state filing fee. Other services can be cheaper or more expensive. The difference between us and our competitors really is we have one package, so we give you everything that you need to walk into a bank and open a business checking account, whereas some of these other formation providers will have just a matrix of options and you don't really know what you need and it's kind of confusing. So we like to kind of go simple and transparent to the point. This is what we charge, this is what the state charges, this is how long it'll take.
Okay, cool. And then, so that's like the setup cost, then ongoing fees, to maintain your business, to maintain that entity. What do those look like?
Yeah, so again, that varies by state. And really it's just taxes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, every state has state compliance. So you have to file with the state once a year or, on your anniversary of your business. Again, that varies very specifically by state. They might have fees to file this. Some states are free. We have an ongoing subscription that allows that we'll handle that for you, so you don't have to think about, well, in California, when is my anniversary? When do I owe this money to the government? But really, it's just taxes, and you really want to kind of do that research on your state, what your state charges for fees and taxes and whatnot.
Yep.
We have chat available, so you can ask us, and if we've got the information, we'll be happy to tell you.
Okay, perfect. One question we also get a lot is people that are living abroad. Like if you're running your store already and you're nomadic and you live in Thailand or you live in Vietnam but you're from the States, it's pretty cool. Like I know your company could help people just get set up from anywhere, right? They don't have to come to the States to form an entity here. Yeah,
we have a lot of either U.S. citizens that are abroad or expats or even internationals that have no affiliation with the United States that set up LLCs within a specific state. If you're a U.S. citizen just traveling abroad, you're a digital nomad, that's the dream.
Yeah.
That's no problem. You probably have a checking account with a banker in the United States. The real problem with being international and opening an LLC is the business checking account. If you have an existing relationship with a bank, it makes it much easier. So if you're a U.S. citizen, you have a checking account or a bank account in the United States, and you happen to be abroad anywhere, they have a relationship with you, and they'll say, okay, well, we'll set up a business checking account for you, no problem. If you are an international and you don't live in the United States, you've never been in the United States, that gets more complicated because the banks really need to know who they're dealing with. So if you've got a friend or family member that can help introduce you to a local bank, or you happen to make a trip to the United States to do that, that is how you'd handle that. But there are no limitations between an international and a U.S. citizen owning an LLC together, or international owning an LLC outright. There's no restrictions on that.
Yeah, so even if you're watching this right now, you're Italian, you live in Italy, and you want a U.S. LLC, that part, no problem. The LLC, the EIN number, you could set that up while in Italy. It's just the bank account portion. But honestly, like with a lot of the suppliers you're going to be talking to specifically for drop shipping, it doesn't matter. Like use your Italian bank account. Like that's fine. You could open an account in USD over there also. So kind of up to you. Another personal thing, but you don't need to come here right away to get a bank account is one thing I would say if you're going to hold off because of that. I guess the final question we could take on, which a lot of people that are in dropship lifestyle, they'll open like a network of stores. So maybe someone's selling sofas like that, then they're like, okay, now I want to sell coffee tables. They open another store, then they want to sell tripods like the camera's on. They open a tripod store. So the question is, should I have 3 LLCs or should I have one called Buy All My Stuff LLC? Like what's the plan there?
So that really is a case-by-case basis, and the person has to make that decision on how much. Again, it all comes down to liability protection. Do you want liability protection between every individual business, or is it a very low-risk business where you can have one entity and run all of these different businesses through that and just use a DBA, which is also known as a fictitious name, or doing business as, where you can have different names all attached to the LLC for different branding. But if there's very high risk that you might get sued with one of your businesses, you don't want that business dragging down the other 3 or 4 businesses that you have. So if you do have one that's more high risk than the others, you might want to separate that as its own LLC, or if they're all kind of high risk where that's an issue, you might want to have them all as individual LLCs. But again, that's up to you. It's a liability thing, a branding thing if you want, or if you just want to have separate checking accounts for each. If you've got very complex finances, you might not want to just run them all together. You might want to separate them. It's up to you. Yeah,
and if you think you're going to want to maybe like build 10 different stores and 3 of them you're building to sell, then that might make sense too. Put those 3 under a different LLC. But like Chad mentioned, the liability thing is everything. We talked about this earlier, but different like real estate investment companies, when they buy properties, every property is bought through a different LLC, and that's because if they get sued on that property, they don't want to lose their other 10. So with what we do, again, I don't know what you're selling, and I don't know how you do business, so think about your business specifically. But I'll tell you personally, we run all of our e-commerce businesses through one business entity because the risk really, I don't, knock on wood, there's not really much risk to what it is we're doing. So yeah.
And again, if you're dealing with something more complex like that, it always talk to a professional. Our service is generally for people who just want the LLC. They want kind of a stock thing. Our operating agreement that is provided, and we didn't really go into this, but what we provide, the main really important guts to an LLC are the state filing, the EIN, which is provided by the IRS, and the operating agreement, which is really the most valuable piece, which is the rules of your business, what prove that you're the owner of your business, what happens if you and your business partner get into a disagreement, who votes, if someone invests, what kind of voting rights do they have? There's ours is a 40 to 50 page document that we customize with your information, but it's pretty stock, and it runs with a lot of edge cases. But if you have something very complex and very unique, always talk to a professional, talk to your lawyer, talk to a CPA, and get more personalized information.
Definitely, yeah. And as a starting point, again, make your decision, but betterlegal.com. They're already doing this. Like I mentioned, they've done well over 1,000 LLC formations in this past year alone. And pretty cool. When we release Dropship Lifestyle 7.0, which keep a lookout around mid-November, we're going to be doing some things together. So yeah, keep an eye out. You'll probably be seeing a lot more of Chad and Better Legal around the Dropship Lifestyle community. So thank you for talking about this, and yeah, look forward to working together.
Thanks for having me.
Cool.